Hello and welcome to today's virtual arena. Today with me is Carole Layzell from Nationwide, and today we're going to be talking all about customer experience over various different channels. And I want to first talk about how obviously we were originally going to do a very similar interview in person, but because of Corona, we are now doing it through the virtual arena. So it's very exciting to see how digital technologies are already changing the media industry. So let's dig into how it's changing the financial services industry. So Carole, could you give me a bit of background to yourself and your role at Nationwide, please?
Yeah, so hi. So great to see you. So I'm the Channel Service Director at Nationwide Building Society. I've been here for about a year now, just over actually, following sort of a 30-year career in retail banking. So absolutely loving working at Nationwide. It's an absolutely awesome company with great people. So yeah, having really good fun. Absolutely
brilliant. And it's hard to miss the kind of signs in and around the UK when you see Nationwide being rated, number one for various different things, customer experience. Can you give me a bit of background to that and how Nationwide kind of created this niche, despite not being a typical bank, has become Britain's best bank?
Yeah, I know, it's quite an irony there actually, and it's something we're incredibly proud of. And as always, I think it just starts with and finishes with our people. Our people are absolutely amazing. And it's interesting when you think about it, we are number one on the high street and we're not even a bank. And yet they still felt the need to, they still want to look to the future, and hence my role was created. And they brought me in a year ago to say, and what does the next stage of that look like? Because we're really keen to make sure that our customer experience, and we don't have customers, we have members because we're a mutual. So you will hear me refer to them today as our members, and we really are focused on not just about the experience that we deliver today, but what does that look like for the future, particularly in the ever changing landscape when you think about digital and how that's fundamentally changing financial services and many industries. What does that look like for Nationwide, and how can we make sure that we still offer those amazing services through multiple channels?
Absolutely brilliant. Yeah, and that really is the cornerstone of today's conversation. But speaking of the various different channels, how do you think customer experience is different now for a bank? Considering that it's now expected that you can interact with them over various different channels.
Member needs and customer needs are changing, and in a world now where you can get everything instant and you can get everything online, you can get your food delivered online, you can get a date online, literally everything is online and it's instant. But one of the things that we recognise is that, and particularly for our members, they want choice. And they want to interact with us through different channels. So it's really important for us that we continue to offer that choice. And actually one day they might choose to interact with us through a digital channel, but then something might happen and might be a moment that really matters to them, or there's a bigger financial need. And that's when we find that the human touch is really, really important. So to enable our members to go in and out of channels seamlessly, because they can start off in one and finish off in another, that's where I think we can really differentiate ourselves from some of our competitors, because I think we can do that seamlessly. And I think digital with a human touch has never been, more important than it is today. And that might have sounded a bit cliche, a few months ago, but with what's going on currently, it's really, become apparent about how important that is.
Definitely, and I think that's actually a really interesting angle that we should explore is, how has Corona and the pandemic really affected customer experience using these digital channels while also keeping that human element for Nationwide?
Yeah, and it's been challenging for everybody. You can't sort of shy away from that. I guess the ability to be able to scale and resource based on the need of the member, because it has fundamentally changed and so very, very quickly. And I think what we're seeing from our members, what might have been important to them yesterday is, very different to what might be for tomorrow. And you start to see that as you look at the change of behaviour and how we use our data, for example, to say how is our member sentiment changing. When the outbreak first happened, we was noticing lots of sentiment about travel, for example. I had a holiday booked, what does that mean for me? Can I get a refund? And as well as using their travel insurance and things like that, and the travel companies. Then we started to see that very much change to, actually, I'm worried about what this might mean in terms of the future, and how am I going to pay my bills. Then you start to see, well, actually, I might need a payment holiday, for example, one of our products. So you started to see the sentiment changing, and we've made sure that we know we are listening to our members and making sure that we're there for them, every step of the way, to make sure that we are being able to reassure them, and then obviously change our products and services to meet those needs and demands, as well as our resources. So some of the things that we've been able to step up very, very quickly, for example, is as we started to see some of the transactions reduce in branch because of social distancing and the fact that many people are on lockdown, we've been able to pivot that resource to turn our branches into sort of mini contact centres. So they've been taking the overflow because many more people are choosing to phone us up to get those products and services from us. So we've seen an increase sort of month on month, sort of middle of March to the middle of April, an increase on people for the first time registering for digital by 89% versus the previous month.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So, that just goes to show you how it's changed dramatically. I couldn't sort of talk about whether that will change permanently for the future and what does that mean, as we come out of lockdown and what that might look like. But rest assured that, we are there and we're listening to our members. We've got an online tracker where we ask our members about feedback about their interactions with us, and one of the things that we were quickly able to do was to stand up some questions about what does that mean for you in COVID, what extra things would you like from us. So we're really listening to our members at all opportunities through all channels.
If we were to look back a couple of months ago when we were potentially going to have this conversation, we were looking at how digital channels can improve customer experience. We didn't have to have that pandemic conversation. What were some of the exciting, biggest changes that were going to happen when it comes to interacting with a customer digitally for Nationwide members?
There's lots of things that we've been doing, and I guess what COVID has taught us that maybe we've had to reprioritise some of those things. But I think one of the really exciting things that we're looking at is chat, about how we can use chat in a very, very different way. So whether that be Apple Business Chat, for example, that's something that we're piloting at the moment, and video chat, etc. as well, particularly for some of those more in-depth conversations, whether it be mortgage purchase, for example. So there's lots of opportunities, which, no surprises, has become more relevant as it stands today. But these are things that we've been looking at for some time, and how do we start to scale that up based on what our members need. So the team are really excited to be getting involved in some of this, and then waiting to hear what the feedback is for our members, which so far has been incredibly good.
Excellent. And one of the biggest challenges that comes about from utilizing digital and mobile channels is the loss of brand presence, effectively. How can an institution like Nationwide actually look at this as an opportunity to leverage your brand but still using digital channels?
I think it comes back to, I guess, making sure we're there for the moments that matter. And I think, again, something that we're really proud to do is to make sure that the branch is still very much at the centre of everything that we do. Now, that might sound, lots of our competitors are closing many branches, obviously, to fund their digital plan. We're invested in both because we absolutely believe that it's really, really important. And it comes back to that digital with the human touch. So we need to make sure we've got the trust there, and the fact that we've got both of those channels. We know that our members really value face-to-face contact, particularly for the moments that matter. But when it comes to the fast and simple stuff, they want those digital channels there for us as well. So I think that's something that we're really keen to make sure that, you know, we do have that presence on the high street, that we very much get involved in community as well. And then how do you support that community with digital? Because again, you know, making sure people stay safe online, that's really important to us as well. And we want to see that, you know, Nationwide has a part to play in really making sure that we're protecting our members and the wider UK public when it comes to all things digital and fraud.
Excellent. And moving it kind of slightly away from the customer experience side when it comes to channels and digital channels, people are spending a lot more time paying with their mobile, but also still paying with their card. You know, how can a physical card become a connector to this customer relationship, as well as kind of authenticate that payment?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and again, I guess, you know, in the current climate, it's become even more interesting, particularly because of, you know, people using less cash, and I think with a card, whether it's sort of online or face to face, it's part of, I guess, members' everyday life. You know, contactless is increasing. The limit, as you know, has just been increased across the industry as well. So I do think the physical card will continue to play a role in the future. I think, you know, we need to make sure that members still have trust and they still trust that card. And it's almost now, whether it's a card, a physical card or a virtual card through your mobile, it's almost like they've got their bank, their building society in their pocket. And it's almost like they carry that with them. So I think it's still very much a trusted method, particularly for online channels. And with that strong sort of customer authentication, that provides, I think, further security and trust to customers when they're using it. So I do still think it has got a role to play for the future. Excellent.
Brilliant. And an institution like Nationwide has obviously been around, I think it was 1848 from my notes, correct me if I'm wrong. How's coming into an organization like that? What have you seen the difference compared to maybe other organizations that aren't so old? How have you been able to leverage that experience to keep up with the pace of change that you might have seen from, for instance, the challenger banks? You know, how can you actually utilize that experience and customer experience?
Yeah, and it's an interesting one, and I don't know how much you know about our history, but sort of 130 odd years ago, when the founders, they got together in a pub, and
I didn't actually know that.
Yeah, so this is part of our history. So they got together in a pub, and the conversation was about how could they almost all chip in so that they could start to put, so people to buy their own homes, etc. Now, at the moment, we can only dream about going to the pub, can't we?
Please, come on.
However, that was the values that Nationwide was built on 130 years ago. And that's what's kept us strong throughout the whole 130 years. And it still very much forms a part of who and what we are today, because our values are still there. We want to make sure that there's, you know, a roof over everybody's head, there's affordable housing, that we can support our members in being able to achieve those dreams. And we want to be there to support them. So I think the values and the culture that Nationwide has stood for is what still stands us in good stead today. Absolutely
brilliant. And how do you think the relationship between high street institutions like Nationwide and the challenger banks has changed over the last couple of years? Because 4 years ago, when the challenger banks came in, they had this incredible customer experience suite, the brilliant UI. How do you think that has changed? Now, do you see that, for instance, when it comes to customer experience over digital channels, banks and institutions like Nationwide might actually be in a better position going forward?
Yeah, I absolutely, I really believe that. I mean, we can't afford to ignore those competitors because obviously they are there, they are everywhere. But again, it comes back to making sure that customers do have choice. And those competitors offer an incredible service. They don't have legacy systems, so they're very much more agile and nimble sometimes in what they're able to offer. However, it comes back to those moments that matter, and we still hear it time and time again from our own members that whilst they might multi-bank, for example, when it comes to one of those matters, and I'll go back to the example on mortgages, that's when they want to reach out and they want to speak to somebody. You only have to look at COVID, for example. We've been able to scale different services to meet the need, and we've been able to scale that very, very quickly because of our amazing workforce and the amazing colleagues that we've been able, whether it's just to be able to reassure them, that's something I think that's really stood us apart from those competitors, and will continue to do so. And even if it's something as simple as, I do all of my shopping online, and so they can use a challenger bank for that type of stuff, we still see when it's something that's a little bit out of the ordinary, or that they're not quite sure, they will still pick up the phone, or they will still come into the branch and to get that reassurance from us. And that's, the service that we offer there, that's always what's going to make us stand apart from our competitors.
I can imagine. And kind of a difficult question, because no one can answer this really, but now that everyone's been working from home, and as you've noticed, as you told me, you've noticed a huge spike in the amount of people learning to use digital mobile banking. Effectively, the cat's out the bag, I think is the term I want to use. Are people going to go back to, going into a branch? Or I know you've said that when people want a specific and very intense financial topic, they do go in branch. But do you think we're going to see a massive scale back from all large institutions? I know we've already seen it a bit before when it comes to reducing branch networks, but do you think as a result of Corona, we might actually see almost the death of the branch network?
Obviously, I can't comment on what's going to happen in the future in terms of behaviours. However, I still do see the need for a branch, and whether we need to pivot, in terms of the services that we offer, that only time will tell on that one. But the branch is still very much a part of it. One thing that has come out of COVID, whether it's changed the behaviour and how people do their banking, community has been more important than ever, and we've seen wonderful stories across social media and the news, etc. So for Nationwide, it's going to be for us about the role that we play in that community. So actually our branch becomes pivotal, I think, in terms of maybe connecting the community and offering our services in a very, very different way. So whilst we might not see as many transactions that we might do across the counter, what that means then is that we can then free up the time of our colleagues in the branch to have meaningful conversations in different ways, whether that might be to help with things like income and expenditure. Is there a role for us, for example, I think so many people have been caught short with they didn't have enough savings, they haven't had enough to fall back on. So what's the role that we can play to really help them to make sure they do have that cushion, to make sure that they are budgeting in the right way? And then how can we use our branches for things like digital skills, fraud awareness? There's so many other opportunities I think it opens up. So I think the transactions we might start to see in a very, very different way. But that community, and coming back to our values and the role that we play on the high street, we are absolutely committed to. And I just see this as an exciting time for us to say, how can we start to have some really great conversations with our members, and to obviously invite more people to come in and join Nationwide.
Brilliant. And we've touched on it briefly before, but how are you looking to increase the omni-channel customer experience across all these digital platforms, since we are going to keep seeing the physical branch in store? What exciting omni-channel type innovations do you think we might start seeing post-Corona?
Oh, I think the world is our oyster, as they say, because obviously it just opens up open banking, for example, you know, it'd be interesting to see the landscape of that going forward, and, you know, the opportunities, you know, how we can partner with, you know, different companies to really make sure that we're supporting our members with, you know, whether it be things like utility bills, for example. How can we make sure our members are getting the best deal? You know, we're partnering with different companies to say we really want to make sure, not just for their banking, but anything to do with financial services, that we're getting the best deals for them. So I think there's lots of opportunities that would open up through things like open banking, for example, that's going to give members, customers, consumers better choice out there, and Nationwide wants to be at the front of that.
Absolutely brilliant. Well, thank you so much for your time, Carole. It's been really interesting. And yes, thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much, and stay safe.
Thank you, you too. And make sure to catch the rest of our Virtual Arena series at www.fintech.finance. See ya.